On the afternoon the theorem was accepted, Lena Hart stood in the department common room and tapped the printout square against the edge of the table 3 times before she let herself read the first line. It was an old habit. The stapled packet was warm from the copier. Behind her, someone was opening another bottle of sparkling wine with more force than the event required. Plastic cups knocked together. A little cheer went up from the hallway, then dissolved into the ordinary acoustics of mathematicians trying not to sound pleased with themselves. On the projector at the far end of the room, the verification dashboard was still open. A column of module names sat in green. The final line said, "Build completed successfully," in a neat sans serif that managed to look both cheerful and indifferent. Somebody had taken a picture of it already. The proof had passed peer review in the spring. Over the summer, the formalization group had translated it into lean and certified every dependency. By lunch, the theorem was part of the local weather. "If you start now," Arun said beside her, "you'll miss the cake." Lena looked up. He had a paper plate in one hand and a plastic fork in the other. The cake was yellow, store-bought, and already sweating under its glaze. Arun was 2 years ahead of her, close enough in age that nobody mistook him for authority, old enough in the profession that he had begun saying things like, "You can always fix that in postdoc," with a straight face. "I'm only reading the introduction," she said. "That's how they get you." She smiled despite herself. Arun had already made peace with the fact that citing the theorem and understanding it were different activities. "You read it?" Lena asked. "Enough to improve my posture." Around them the room smelled of copier heat, supermarket frosting, and dry erase marker from the seminar that had run long and become celebration by simple failure to end. The whiteboard still held the speaker's last diagram. 3 boxes, 4 arrows, a ring around something no longer legible where a sleeve had dragged through it. Someone had drawn a little bottle beside the theorem number. Lena looked back down at the packet. The type was clean. The notation was not especially ugly. That had almost disappointed her when she first saw it online. She had wanted difficulty to announce itself honestly. Instead, the opening pages had the same calm typography as everything else in the field, the same lemmas stepping forward in order, the same brief little phrases of obligation. Only later did she begin to lose track of what seemed to support what. She turned one page, then another. "Don't take it home tonight," Arun said. "Why not?" "Because tomorrow you'll think you understood Section 2, and on Thursday Section 2 will move." Lena held the packet half lifted in her hands. "Move where?" He took a bite of cake and considered this as if it were a serious topological question. "Usually backward," he said. She laughed. Across the room somebody called for the authors on video. The green modules on the projector stayed green. Lena tapped the packet square against the table once more, softer this time, and slid it into her bag under her notebook. That night she took it home anyway. In October, the department gave them Seminar Room B on Wednesday evenings and started calling it the Proof Room as a joke that lasted just long enough to become the room's name. It was a glass box between the mailroom and the graduate lounge, too narrow for the number of people who kept trying to inhabit it. By 6, the windows turned black and threw the room back at itself. Whiteboards, thermoses, shoulders and sweaters, the long table with 3 laptops open to the same theorem in different surfaces. On Lena's screen, the published proof sat in a PDF at left. At right, Lean showed the mirrored formalization in a VS Code window, the goal pane empty except for the line, "No goals," under the leva they had just checked. Her dissertation chapter sat on her office machine downstairs with a red bracket where the theorem was supposed to go. Nobody trusted the emptiness. They trusted what had produced it. By then Lena had a system. The official proof was printed one-sided and lived in a blue binder. Her own rewrite lived on loose paper, revised often enough that she stopped numbering the pages and began dating them in pencil. Pink tabs marked lemmas she thought she understood. Yellow tabs marked lemmas that became clear only when she traced them through the formalization. Green tabs marked places where the human rewrite still broke. The edge of the binder had grown into a bright paper comb. The colors did not stay honest. One week, lemma 14 was pink. She could explain it standing up with one hand and a dry marker, while someone else erased the board behind her. The next week she opened the binder and the proof in her head had lost a hallway. When that happened, she would pull the packet from the binder, tap the pages square on the table, and begin again from the last place she had trusted. At first there had been 8 of them in the room. By January there were 4 regulars and a drift of people who came in, listened for 20 minutes, and left with expressions too polite to name. Arun stayed, so did May from Logic, who could coax the formalization through another accepted step with a kind of dry patience Lena envied. The master students began filing short notes with titles like Bridge for Lemma 22, if one keeps the tower explicit. The notes were good, none of them lasted. Every few weeks they produced a cleaner human version and tested it against the formal proof. Testing meant cutting long whiteboard arguments into something Lean would accept without inventing a different route than the one they meant. If they compressed too hard, a hypothesis vanished. If they restored the missing detail, the proof swelled back toward the original, correct and airless. One Wednesday in late February, Lena arrived to find Arun alone in the room, standing on a chair to wipe the upper third of the whiteboard. "Ambitious," she said. "I'm trying to erase only the false hope." He stepped down. The rag in his hand was gray with old marker. On the table sat the current rewrite, 29 pages clipped instead of stapled, because they still expected the order to change. Lena set down her bag and pulled out the blue binder. The packet inside had gone soft at the corners. She tapped it square against the table. Arun watched her do it. "You know that's not part of the method. It is for me. Then I admire your rigor." She opened to the place they had lost earlier that week. The formal statement on screen was brief enough to be insulting. Beneath it, in the editor, May had expanded a proof term until it filled half the pane with nested applications and names Lena recognized one by one without feeling them join. "I had it on Sunday," Lena said. "I know. I could have taught it." Arun sat across from her. The seminar room lights had come on automatically in the hall, and in the dark glass behind him the reflections of the room floated over the mailboxes outside like another department trying to occupy the same geometry. "You can still cite it," he said. It was not a joke, and not quite comfort. Lena uncapped her pen and wrote the lemma number in the margin for the 4th time. "That isn't the same thing." "No," he said, "but it's still a thing." She looked at the page until the symbols settled back into their ordinary innocence. "Does that not bother you?" Arun turned the rag over in his hands, finding a cleaner patch that wasn't there. "Less than it used to," he said. "There are theorems I understand, theorems I can use, and theorems I believe because the chain behind them is stronger than any one person's memory. It isn't noble, it just saves time." Lena looked down at the margin where she had written the lemma number 4 times. "That's bleak. It's adulthood." She made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had not landed so flat. "What did mathematics used to feel like to you?" she said, "before you decided that was enough." He leaned back in the chair. Through the wall they could hear the graduate lounge microwave finish and nobody go to claim it. "Like furniture assembly?" he said. "Bad furniture assembly?" There was always one hidden screw, but if you kept at it you could feel where it had to go. Lena put down her pen. "That's awful," you asked. He smiled then, small and apologetic. It made the room easier to stay in. By spring they had a 50-page rewrite that everyone agreed was the closest thing yet to a human version. It used full sentences where the original had stacked notation. It carried a single example through 3 sections like a handrail. Lena spent 2 Saturdays reducing part of section 4 to 6 pages she could almost hold in her head long enough to walk home with it. On Monday, May ran the comparison. They used a local checker for the outline and the department's lean mirror for the exact claims. Green ticks walked down the margin until page 31, where the checker stopped beside a sentence Lena had written herself. In lean, the mirrored lemma hung on one hypothesis they had omitted for mercy. May copied the missing line back in from the official proof. The checker turned green. The paragraph on Lena's page no longer said what she had meant. Arun slid the black page clip down 2 sheets. By 5:30 they had 3 versions open and none of them said the same thing in the same order anymore. Lena went to the sink in the lounge to fill her bottle and found a florist's bucket sitting on the counter, left there for the student colloquium reception downstairs. Yellow tulips leaned against one another in a paper sleeve damp at the bottom. For a second she stood with the bottle under the tap too long and watched the water strike metal and turn white. When she came back, the room was as she had left it. Whiteboard dust on the tray, cables underfoot. Arun with one hand over his mouth reading the same line twice. "We can put the detail back," May said carefully. "Then we lose the point of rewriting it," Lena said. Nobody argued. 3 years later, Lena taught the graduate reading seminar herself. The department had renovated the lounge and replaced the old projector, but Seminar Room B was still called the proof room by people too young to remember when the name began. The theorem now lived in textbooks as a statement, in talks as an assumption, and in papers as a line near the top of the second page. The official proof and its formal verification had been archived together in the department repository. The students around the table were good. Their notebooks were already open when she sat down. One had copied the citation onto an index card in 4 careful colors. Lena liked them for that kind of effort. That afternoon they were reading a result that depended on the theorem in a way polite enough not to advertise itself. One of the students, Jonah, had found the citation and gone looking. "I read the first 40 pages, he said with the embarrassed pride of someone confessing to a manageable injury. "I think I know what the setup is doing, but then every time I trace one of the later lemmas back, the place I thought I started from changes." There was a small pause around the table. Not discomfort, exactly. Recognition waiting to see whether it would be admitted. Lena looked at the packet in front of him. He had printed the official proof two-sided and stapled it in the top left corner. The pages were still stiff. No tabs, no margin dates, no pencil scars where a hand had gone back and tried again. Across from her, Arun, now visiting for the week and pretending not to be flattered by the seminar invitation, was studying the board. "Yes," Lena said. Jonah looked up. "Yes, what?" "Yes," she said. "That happens." He waited. The room waited with him. Outside the glass, 2 undergraduates went by carrying poster tubes and not looking in. "Is there a standard way to read it?" he asked. Arun made the slightest movement with his shoulders, not quite a shrug and not quite restraint. Lena understood the offer in it. He would take the question if she wanted him to. He would give the grown answer about accepted truth and strong chains and the profession's ability to live with distributed understanding. It was a good answer. It was not wrong. Lena put her hand on Jonah's printout instead. The paper was warm. Without thinking, she aligned the bottom edge against the wood and tapped the packet square 3 times. The old motion came back to her exactly. "There isn't a standard way," she said. Jonah's face fell, and then, when he saw that she was not finished, settled again. "There are ways people have found to keep their place for a while," she said. "Write down what each lemma thinks it is buying you. Date your notes. When something stops feeling clear, don't assume you imagined the earlier clarity. It was real at the time." Arun looked at her then, finally, and smiled with one corner of his mouth. "Bleak," he said. "Adulthood," she said. The students laughed, not because they fully understood but because the line had arrived where a line was needed. Lena let go of the packet. On the board behind Jonah, the dependency chain from today's paper bent cleanly toward the theorem and stopped there, at the edge of what the seminar could presently inhabit. Sunlight had found the glass wall and turned it pale gold. Outside, a paper cup held 3 yellow highlighters with their caps off, bright as flowers.